Hello, and welcome to the Unstoppable You Life After Divorce. This is where we speak into how to let go, reinvent yourself, and create the confidence to say hello to the new you. I'm Amy Schadt. I'm your host, and today we have Paulette Rigo. She is a credentialed mediator, a certified divorce coach, a trauma-informed recovery coach, and a career transition specialist. She's the author of A Better Divorce Blueprint. It's an online course, a book, planner, a no matter what card deck, which would be, I would like to hear more about that. She's the host of the Thriving in Chaos Project podcast, creator of Best Life Ever Retreats, and founder of Better Divorce Academy. Her commitment to creating an optimal divorce experience is her life's work. So welcome, Paulette.
Thank you, Amy. It's an honor to be here. I'm really excited that you're making the effort and energy, because I know how much work it is, to present this very needed topic to so many people. Kudos to you.
Oh, thank you. I will receive that. So Paulette, tell us about you and your experience and how you help women through the divorce process. I know you go through there's three different areas you work with.
Yeah, divorce is one of those things that incorporates and it all encompasses every aspect of your life, every cell in your body. I can't think of a part of your life that is not affected. Divorce is also another word for change and patience. There's many parts of the divorce journey that need to be addressed in order to handle it with dignity and grace and really create that outcome that you deserve. I had no interest in doing this work, my dear. I mean it, Amy. I did not wake up and say, oh, guess what I'm going to be? I'm going to be a mediator and a divorce coach. But I had a very unique experience. I never really thought I'd be divorced. I married quite young, but confidently, thought, well, this is the next thing to do on my list of things to do as a young woman, went to college, got a degree in communications and journalism, got married at 23. Before I knew it, I was a young mother with 3 children, living this picture perfect life. And 20 years into it, realized, maybe this isn't really the life I signed up for. Not that we ever know what we're signing up for, right? Sometimes it's a little bit of we have to kind of live our way into the answers. So I did make the very difficult decision to divorce. It wasn't something I took lightly, and come to find out 70% of divorce is filed by women. I think that maybe even increasing a little bit. Last year alone, there were 2.6 million divorces in the United States. That is up 43%. It is a divorce every 13 seconds, and it doesn't seem to be going away. So I didn't know, but I didn't know that there was really different methods or ways to go about divorcing. So I learned the hard way. And the statistics are that 97% of divorces manage on some level to either DIY, mediate, collaborate, arbitrate, and litigate to the point where they don't have to go to a trial. They manage to have a communication, work it out between the two of them with or without legal advice, and manage to stay out of trial. But those 3% that aren't in the 97% that do go to trial, of that 3% that go to trial, 1% of those go to the appellant court process. And unfortunately, that was me. I lived through an 8.5-year fully litigated divorce experience that included a 12-day trial that took place over 9 months. And then after that experience, there was a 4-year Massachusetts Supreme Appellate Court process. That experience just literally threw me into this world I knew very little bit about, although learned personally and professionally. And because my case became very well known, many people reached out to me and said, I heard about your case. I can't believe you're not divorced yet, but if you can get through it, anybody can. Can you help me? So I immediately, being who I am, said, sure, let me see what I can do to help. Didn't mean to do it professionally. It was more of just like, anytime you think you can help somebody, I'm all on board. So I made a lot of coffee, listened to a lot of stories, took some copious notes, and started to notice some similarities. And ultimately, with the advice of many professionals, including my attorney, decided to pursue becoming a mediator and a certified divorce coach and consultant, which led me to creating Better Divorce Academy and authoring Better Divorce Blueprint. So that's how I got from where I was to where I am now. It is a full-time career, unfortunately, but the passion and the outcome is really worth me being able to share my own personal and professional experience to create that experience, whether it be before contemplating, being stuck in the middle of it, and really how I see the glorious transformation and new life that is maybe not so easy to do. It sounds so easy, right? Just create a new life, but it really on the other side can be so, in fact, beautiful.
Mm-hmm. So I know we decided to discuss and talk about justice. And it's interesting because when you enter into you're going into the justice system or you are looking for justice, right? So justice seems to be a term that's alive in a divorce and or in our life, in our personal life. So can you speak into what you know about justice?
Absolutely. I've learned quite a bit, actually. I've had many attorneys and other professionals in the world say that, you have that judicial kind of mind of really being able to see the both sides and apply it to the law. Not that I ever give legal advice, but you start to see patterns. And I do see that either couples or individuals, when they do make that gut-wrenching decision to contemplate, research, prepare, organize, resource the decision so that they're not going into it blind, although many do. They really are looking for more than just a finality of how to separate assets, create new lives, come up with a parenting plan, decide what to do with the marital home. But there's much more to it when it comes to the emotional side, because there are two sides of the divorce journey. On one side, kind of think of it as railroad tracks. On one side, you had this very psychological, emotional, mental, physical, sexual, spiritual aspect of marriage, relationships, and dare I say divorce, right? There's this kind of, dare I say, woo-woo side of it, the more emotional side. But on the other side, you've got this very judicial, legal, financial, residential, mortgage, insurance, taxes. It's very cut and dry. It looks like an Excel spreadsheet where it just looks very factual. It's numbers, it's dates, it's facts. How long have you been married? Basically, it's like a resume, right? And those two worlds don't really touch or collide. And one side doesn't necessarily understand or care about the other. And they live in two very separate worlds. So when you go into the court system, it's a very formal environment. There's a certain decorum. We have a very strict dress code, and there is security, and there is a very formal historical shall we say, decorum of standing up when the judge walks into the room and, raising your hand and swearing to tell the truth. And there's just a sort of protocol that many people are very unfamiliar with. And they expect to walk in there and be able to have some sort of justice. Well, because there's a judge who naturally judges and looks at the evidence and comes up with a ruling or a decision and will make a decision based on who wronged the other, and that isn't really the case. The judicial system itself is not set up for emotional justice. The legal system really just adheres to the laws and the precedents. And I do believe that many people are looking for that piece of paper, that certificate, that blue ribbon, that somehow if they're going to get an award or some sort of validation or a checklist of who did what to whom and how that weighs out in the sense of the scales of justice. If we look at the traditional model, right, of the logo of justice, it's basically a woman, right, with a crown, and I think it's a woman, right?
It is
has kind of a robe on, right? And on one side of the scale, you have like the triple beam balance on the other. And so at what point is it weighed? But the court system is not to award emotional justice. There really is, unfortunately, no emotional justice. There can be other types of validation and types of acceptance and understanding of how you and then can be compensated in the sense of the length of the marriage, the station of the marriage. But for the most part, that little cherry on top of the sundae, that yes, I did get that emotional justice. Unfortunately, in most people's eyes, it just doesn't happen.
Yes. And I'm just thinking about those railroad tracks. So it's such a great, example and a visual for us, because we're speaking mostly to women here. So I'm going to speak to that audience, is that, yeah, we emotionally invest so much in our families, in our marriage, in our life. And somehow that, so that's really valuable to us. And so I could see the struggle there, because sometimes for us, that's more valuable than a car or money or something else, So I could see the struggle. So how do you help women with that, who have that feeling of those emotions and justice, and how can we really release that, help them release that?
It's important. I'm so glad you're asking that question. Mostly it comes down to education. We have a fantasy about how marriage should start. I think all young women have the fantasy of the white dress and the beautiful wedding and the cake and the guests and the ring and the veil and the music and the protocol. But we also have this fantasy of, if it ever doesn't go right for whatever reason, that it's going to be okay, and that both parties are going to act in good faith, that they're going to treat each other with respect, that they're going to trust their partner to do the right thing, and that they're going to be surrounded by loved ones and support, and the legal system will jump in there to validate and sort of support them. And in many ways, the legal system does, on some degree, to do that, in the sense that there are the 4 categories that need to be addressed with legal and physical custody, child support, the division of marital assets, and the issue of spousal support. Those are the issues that the courts care about. But the courts are not designed to punish the bad actors or reward the good actors or the good spouse. There really is no good spouse, bad spouse. So whether that be infidelity, addiction, abuse, abandonment, et cetera, there's many different reasons people divorce. And in fact, my book, I list the 21 main reasons that couples do divorce. And it isn't like I list them in priority of most egregious to least egregious. And naturally, the more of those 21 you have, the more likely it is that divorce is probably the best decision to go ahead and make. I never throw in the towel. I always want to make sure that both parties really have done everything they can to do their due diligence, as we say in the legal system, to make sure that they're not throwing in the towel. But when they're involved in the divorce proceeding, the judge determines the factual things like property and asset division, child and spousal support, and child custody and visitation. It does not say, okay, who cheated, who dissipated marital funds, who lied, who stayed out till 3 a.m, and whatever the scenarios are. In fact, in most courts now, it's simply looking at the facts. One does not even need to determine fault. Most of the time, is determined as an irreconcilable difference. And in many cases, it's not always contemptuous. They are finding some middle ground on some decisions, whether that be a parenting plan or who keeps the car or whatever the decision is. It can be difficult, but education is important. When you go into the process and you don't know what to expect, you expect something different because you're just not in the know. Getting educated about how the divorce process works and knowing that there's more than one option. I'm not pro-divorce or pro-litigation, although 3% of cases do need to go to trial, or those are about the numbers, depending on the state you live in. They may fluctuate slightly. But once you know that you have options and you are in the driver's seat and you're able to control the process a little bit more, the more you go into the litigated process, it's public and not private. So your confidentiality and privacy goes right out the window when you're able to stay in control and understand that if you're working with an attorney, and many people need the advice and the support of an attorney. Not everyone does if it's a very simple divorce and both parties are on the same page. But if you do, and I highly recommend of always interviewing and getting the legal advice of an attorney, you have to remember that you're the client. They work for you, you don't work for them, or you're going to get extremely high bills. So really understanding all of your options is the first step to making sure that you understand that justice isn't the shall we say, the prize or the result of divorce. The result of divorce is for two people to come to an understanding, to create a new life that is healthier for them as a couple, each as individual, and for the children and the family unit in itself.
Yeah, because we want things to be fair. We want things to be even. And so I know many of us have experienced, like in my case, my spouse was fine. He didn't fight me. And he was actually helped me with we did a postnuptial agreement. Which I don't think many people know about.
They're gaining popularity, but it's really cool to hear that worked.
It worked with the IRS. It got me off of his IRS debt, actually, which was great. So we're in the state. We are divorced, and we are still. We get the paper. It's in. It's still a mourning. I remember getting the divorce papers. It still was a grief and mourning of that chapter of my life, because I thought it was going to go this way, right? It ended up going that way. So how do you support women in that transition after, they are divorced?
Well, a lot of that has to do with them reevaluating what worked in their life previous to the debacle, the demise of the marriage, taking responsibility and ownership in the part that they played. Because even in the most amicable and healthy marriages and divorces, there's still a little bit of like, what role did I play in that? Mm-hmm. Because we don't want to repeat the pattern. The worst thing to do is think that, it wasn't that bad. And then 2 to 3, 4 years down the road, you find yourself in another relationship. Dare I say, Amy, another marriage where you're repeating the same mistakes. So when you notice and sort of reevaluate what worked, because I want to keep doing that, right, and reevaluate what didn't work so well in your own stock of inventory, and then make sure that you really acknowledge and kind of analyze and eliminate and discriminate, kind of discern what those habits, patterns, habituations, imprints that you're habituating, shall we say, right? Repeating,
Mm-hmm.
that you learn to identify what they are, because that is going to empower and inspire you to acknowledge, I see myself doing that again, and I don't want to make that same mistake. Once you've done that, it's reconnecting to your values, redoing a values exercise. I believe it's in page 30 and 31 in my book. I list 200 and something values. And the first one is, I don't know, it begins with A. I think it might be acceptance. And W, I don't think I have a Z, but I think W is wisdom. And I have them circle their top 25 and then narrow it down to maybe 6 or 7. It sounds easy. But those are kind of your core essential values that you hold near and dear to your heart. If you don't know what makes you tick and what your core values are, it's going to be really hard to reconnect to self, because you're going to need to bring self with you, with the capital S, forward, and leave behind all the other things and labels and identifications and things that you did, just either said or did to placate or make other people happy. Many women in marriage take on roles that don't either serve them, suit them, or they're just really damaging or unhappy, whether that be codependency, secrecy, whatever it is. You always want to make sure that you're owning who you are, you're taking it, and making sure that you are staying connected to your values. It's when you kind of you sidebar them, there's my legal term, right? And you say like, yeah, I'm going to just revisit that lately, that you get yourself in trouble. And it's for many women that are lucky, and I hate to say that because I don't think it's luck, that they are able to have some child support or alimony, spousal support, now that it's called that. It doesn't last forever. And they need to understand, what is my plan B? And many women make the mistake of waiting until 1 year, 6 months, 3 months, a month before it ends, whether the children are emancipated at 18, 21, sometimes 23. And alimony runs out for whatever period of time you have it, based on the duration of your marriage and the work relationship. Now, if it ends and you have no plan, immediately fear kicks in, and that survival mode, and you lose sight of those core values, and you go where the amygdala kicks in, and you go into the brain that says, I need to survive. And when we do that, our core values kind of get ignored. So always making sure that you're planning future forward. I don't mean micromanaging and kind of being paranoid and getting like fear about it, but saying, now is the time I have to own who I am, what I did, what was working, what isn't working, and know that I am going to continue to craft the life that I deserve. It's never too late to start over. And starting to understand that maybe the people that you've had in your life that you thought would come along for the journey and the ride with you might need to be reevaluated. I don't just mean your ex-spouse. There may be friends, coworkers, family, neighbors, you name it, that really have not been lifting you up and supporting you. And without sending them a letter saying, hey, I'm going to eliminate you from my life. But it's really important. I mean, you laugh, but it's true. Like, it's a hard decision to make, to say, is this person making me a better version of myself and adding to that? Or is it pulling me back, dragging me back to the life I don't want to live anymore?
Yeah. So let's say we are ready to think about getting in a relationship and marriage and all that. So what do you recommend we do differently, both legally and emotionally, going into like a new marriage?
Well, I love this. And I'm remarried 4.5 years now. I never dreamed in a million years, and I mean that I would remarry. I saw myself in a relationship, but I didn't see myself recommitting to a relationship with the term marriage. But there was something very I don't know, strong, that made me feel like it was the right decision. And now the decision you make in your 50s is a hell of a lot different than the decision you make at 20, whatever, or 30 or whatever. This is just my personal situation. So I no longer felt the pressure of family and judgment of what I thought I needed to do or what I thought was appropriate or acceptable by society. I felt that I could make a decision based on me and was really much more in alignment and congruent with how I saw living the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And one of the most major decisions for me was, should I change my name? It sounds so darn easy. And, when you're young, you're like, oh, I'm going to just change my name to my husband's name. But think about it, ladies. It is a pain in the rear end, right? And then to change it back and, go from maiden name to married name, back to maiden name or whatever name you want to give yourself to another. It's a lot. You've got to do the social security card, the passport, the driver's license, all your financials, et cetera, and it's costly. It's just time consuming. It's emotional. So be really careful. Dating, oh my, it's just another world because it is all digital, or maybe not all, but I don't know, 80%. What do you think the statistics are of probably women 90%. That choose to date? It might be, right? So it is a different world. In fact, one of my clients who's been divorced a few years, she is an expert in safe dating in the modern age. And I've learned a lot from her. It's amazing the things I learn from my clients. I see them, whether they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, they're in all different stages of divorce and all different stages of re-entering the dating world. And I have to say, best decision I see from observation is to take your time. There is nothing wrong with going on a date, dinner, whatever. But when you jump right back into the fire and you're in a relationship really soon after going through a breakup and a divorce proceeding, particularly if it's a long one, I know it's really tempting to want to get back into a relationship and move in together and share, but you're probably setting yourself up for a lot of heartache, a lot of financial loss. It is so much healthier to learn to love to live alone. And alone doesn't mean lonely. You got to really learn to get used to yourself again. And who are you now that you're not that young, naive, dare I say, innocent, maybe on many levels ignorant? Identifying that the future that you have is yours to create and nobody else's. You have to get rid of all the disruptors and the distractors that have sidetracked you from living who you want to be. Step off that spinning wheel, let go, and enjoy self-care. I even call it extreme self-care. One of my favorite authors way back when I went through mine was Cheryl Richardson. She wrote a book called The Art of Extreme Self-Care. Yeah, The Art of Extreme Self-Care. It probably came out 15, 20 years ago, probably 20 years ago. And I bought it when I quit my job in 2002. Mm-hmm. And it was so transformational. Just get to know yourself again.
Yeah. So important.
Yeah.
And I think it's the most beautiful journey you will ever take.
Yeah, I agree. I felt as if I had in many ways changed every aspect of my life to the point where I didn't really remember the old me, which sounds a little delusional or maybe like amnesia, right? Like I remember things, but whether I blocked it out as a healing modality mechanism, but I was really willing to, what's that saying, leap and the net shall appear. It was a matter of trust and having faith in self and knowing that I deserved to spend that time alone because I no longer had to worry about, family, and the children were older, which is also a different trajectory than, when you're divorcing and you've got a 3-year-old, it's very different than when you have an 18-year-old versus a 30-year-old. The stage of life that you're in is going to have a big effect on the ability of you to kind of ease into that feeling of time and space. But regardless of whatever stage that you are in of life or the stage you're in of divorce, there is an emphasis and an imperative, a priority of you knowing and identifying and prioritizing what it is you really stand for and need. And coming back to a sense of simplicity. It isn't how much clothes you have in your closet, how much money in the bank, all of the accoutrements and stuff. It's just junk. I talk about it, I think, in chapter 7 about starting to really eliminate. I really became somewhat obsessed with the whole KonMari phenomenon. I'm sure you know about Marie Kondo and her book, right? Of like, why am I keeping this? If it doesn't bring me joy, then what the heck am I doing holding on to it?
Yes, I know you have I know we're out of time, but I know you have an interesting story just about all that, like downsizing and simplifying and how that allows for connection and I don't know, it seems more freeing. As you're talking, I'm thinking about my closet over there. So
it's really easy to just hold on and want to retain everything because, I'll never have that Christmas ornament again. I'll never have that baby book again. I'll never have that whatever. And the way I handled it is I took pictures of everything. And then we were staying at a friend's house and had this lovely, lovely, lovely fire pit. And we just had a massive bonfire. I didn't burn baby books or anything, but there's just a lot of stuff. And it was so liberating to sell, donate, repurpose, give away to somebody I knew that really could benefit and use things. Leaving Massachusetts and living in the Caribbean in the middle of nowhere for 3 years was a huge impetus. If you have the opportunity to safely move and do something adventurous, give it a try.
And with that, I know that you have a gift for our audience. Do you want to speak into that?
I would love to. It's actually right there as the hard copy. It's called Better Divorce Blueprint. I created this from the years of notes I took, both personally and professionally, of all the little tips and tools and tricks and skills and resources that got me and my clients through it. Chapters 1, 2, and 3 are before, 4, 5, and 6 are during, and 7 and 8 is after. So it really breaks it down. It's a 307-page guidebook, and it is my gift to all of your audience. And I wish you nothing but the best. You deserve to live the optimal life ahead of you.
Well, thank you for that. And with that, I'm going to say, everyone out there, go have a beautiful rest of your day.